Hi everyone, welcome back to Clocking Talks. And today we are joined by a very special guest. Hi Don and Juice, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot for coming too. And where are you from exactly?
I'm from San Diego in California in the States.
That's a beautiful place, I must say. Yeah. Why not we start the conversation with your background before coaching? Like what were you doing before coaching?
Yeah, so before I became a full-time coach, I was an attorney. I practiced labor and employment law for 25 years. I spent 7 years at a large law firm, international law firm, and then I was in-house at Sempra Energy for 18 years in a bunch of different roles. And somewhere along the way, I met a lot of coaches and really liked them and was intrigued by the work they were doing. And I felt like it was maybe time to move on from the law, coaching came to mind and I got certified and I've been coaching ever since.
That's great. I've heard that people working in law firms are a sort of logical people, like they see logics and on the other side, coaching is more about connecting with the other people, right? Like emotionally knowing them. So there's a difference between both the stuff. How you actually transition into coaching and exactly when you did it.
Yeah, great question. So, labor and employment lawyers by nature, I think, are more people focused than most
Yeah,
types of lawyers, but still very analytical and still trained to look for holes in the things that people are saying, right? Which is not a great tool for making connections with other human beings.
yeah,
But the work that I did, most of my career, I was doing workplace investigations. So in the States, it's very common for large companies to have departments that receive complaints from employees, maybe about other employees or their supervisors or other things, and to investigate them and take action internally. So I did that externally at a law firm and then I did it internally. And that is a process of connecting with people one on one and engendering trust in a very quick manner so that they will tell you openly all the things that they know about what
yeah.
happened. And so that was probably the catalyst or the starting point. And then I spent 3 years working as the head of diversity and inclusion at the company. And it was in that role that I started to really focus more on the learning and development aspects of the workplace and become really fascinated with coaching. So it was about 5 years ago that I started my coaching practice. I think I was licensed the year before that. And then about 2 years ago, I left corporate America to focus full time on coaching. So I do, public speaking. I coach individuals and I lead peer coaching circles. And then I also teach a course at a university here in California.
That's great. So you mentioned like you started actually your coaching career 5, 6 year back. Like if I'm not wrong, it was the time of COVID, right? When you
It
actually
was,
started.
yes, it was a little before, a little after the main crisis. It was probably 2021, late 2021, I think it was.
Got it. So how actually you get into coaching? Like you did any sort of course or any trainings or so how actually do you transition your career?
Yeah, great question. So I had been exposed to an organization in the States called the Neuro Leadership Institute. And I went to a conference of theirs when I was in diversity and inclusion in that role. And I really loved what they did because everything they presented was research backed, research based. So they work with university researchers in neuroscience across the world. And then they bring the best of their knowledge forward to teach people how to um, aid others in coming up with behavioral change to benefit them that's lasting. So that's everything from when you're teaching someone something, you're leading a workshop, all the way down to coaching. And they had a coaching program. So I ended up signing up for it because I loved the work that they did so much. And I completed that program and began coaching right away. And then last year, I went through the process of getting certified through the International Coaching Federation. So I'm an ACC coach with ICF, and I'm about to test for my PCC. So moving along in that process too.
Yeah. All the best for your test first of all.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
lots of tests.
Yeah. So we have talked a lit. little bit about the past. So let's come to the present. What do you actually do in the present, and what problems do you actually help people to get rid of?
Great questions. Okay, so I coach individuals and I also lead peer coaching circles for women. Um, Most of what I do on an individual basis has to do with people who present in some part of the transition process. So they're contemplating a job change, they're trying to promote and they're not getting traction. So they're kind of at a crossroads in their career. Those tend to be the people who come to me for coaching. And they vary in terms of occupation, everything from lawyers to engineers. And nonprofit executives, all kinds of different folks. And that the process that I work through with them usually begins with some kind of an inquiry about work. That's kind of why they come to me, because I'm a leadership coach and an empowerment coach. But I try to look at the whole person, because I think that what is happening to us anywhere is happening to us everywhere. So you can't really show up well at work if things are rough at home. So a lot of my coachees select 3 goals to work on in our 12-week or 12 session engagement. And they usually tend to pick 1 or 2 personal goals, and then the others are professional. And that's kind of individual coaching. The peer coaching circles are super interesting because there I'm bringing together women who work in either a similar field, or they're at a certain level, or they're dealing with similar issues. And we meet once a month. And when we're together, each person has equal time to share a win they've had since we last met, a challenge they're facing, an issue they'd like to be coached on. And the rest of the group will ask them thoughtful questions to elicit insight. They might offer suggestions about what they've done in the past, or they might offer to be an accountability partner for the person who's speaking. And those groups get very tight, they get really bonded. And some of those groups have been together 5 years since I began coaching, because I started with that. So it's pretty beautiful to see, I have to say.
I found out one thing, like you mentioned accountability partner. How do that actually work? And tell me more, just more about that.
Yeah. So it can happen different ways, but in my opinion, the most effective way is a very casual approach. So, for example, if you are in a peer coaching circle and I'm another member of the circle, and you say, I really think I deserve a raise, but they're not going to just give it to me. I have to ask for it. And I'm anxious about that. I don't know what to say. I'm worried about what they will say. And then the group will help you process that issue. And if by the end of the meeting you decide, you know what, I am going to ask for that raise, one of the other members of your group, in this scenario, let's pretend it's me, I would say, would it be okay with you? I'd first ask, when do you want to have the conversation with your boss?
Yeah.
And then you would tell me, Thursday. And then I would say, well, can I check in with you Thursday afternoon and see how it went? So it's a very subtle form of helping you do what you said you do, because somebody's going to check in with you and find out how it went from a lens of caring, not a lens of like, well, you said, and now you're not doing it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it
really
works.
great. In modern world, I haven't seen it much, but it's really great, I must say. So one thing I saw, like on your website, there are a lot of services that you provide apart from individual and peer coaching that you earlier mentioned. You provide workshops and more types of services. Tell me more about that.
Sure. So one of the kind of key parts of my whole career has been public speaking, and I've always had an interest in it. I was on the speech and debate team in high school. It's just something that comes, I would say, kind of easily to me. I don't have any fear around it, and I really enjoy it. So even when I was working in corporate America, I was always creating talks. I was creating workshops, I was creating keynotes, and I would deliver them internally, which is a little bit weird for a lawyer. It's
Yeah.
not something a lot of lawyers have time to do, but it really kept me interested. It gave me an excuse to research or do a deep dive on a particular issue that was interesting to me. And then I could create a training program around it. So some of the things that I've done that in are psychological safety, conscious communication, There's a talk that I give on networking, but it's a unique way of looking at networking. It's an altruistic theory of networking, based on social capital circles. And I give a talk on allyship. I have a talk on implicit bias. I just delivered a talk for a corporate client on the topic of how, as women, we have internal scripts that are sort of dictated not just by the sort of patriarchal system that we all live in, but also by our family systems, our faith systems, our early work experiences, and how you can evaluate those scripts so that you can make an educated decision about whether it's still serving you or not, and what to take and what to give up of those scripts. So it's a host of topics, but I really love giving talks, and I especially love running workshops. And that is sort of what led to my teaching a course at UCSD, the University of California at San Diego, on internal politics. It's a course called Power and Politics in Organizations. And I really help people demystify those unwritten rules and weird relationship ebbs and flows that happen in corporate America that make you think like there's a game being played here and
Yeah.
I don't know the rules, right? So we kind of break all of that apart and develop strategies for working within those rules to achieve our own objectives in an ethical way. So that's a great course. I love teaching that one.
Yeah, that's great. I haven't seen anyone talking that much honestly about that thing, the game thing in the corporate world, and it happens in all the countries. Like I'm in Australia, it happens here too. That's a great point. And other one, I want to just tell you, like we are just opposite. I'm not that good at public speaking, and that's the reason why I started the podcast. I want to just overcome my fear and become a good speaker. And I must say that you are speaking really good, and I'm also, trying to speak good. Yeah.
Nice. That's a great idea. I think for a lot of people, they're so afraid they don't try.
Yeah.
They just make sure they build a life for themselves in which they don't have to engage in public speaking. But making yourself do that hard thing is really helpful. I too have a podcast that I started with my best friend. We started in January. It's called Workplace Confessions Behind Closed Doors. And we interview people anonymously about the work that they do and the crazy things they see at work. So it's giving me the ability to do what I liked most about my legal work, which was speaking with people and learning about their jobs,
Yeah.
and in a more casual, fun way. And then the other thing that I do that I think is super helpful for public speaking is I teach yoga. And if you can stand up in front of a room of strangers and both move your body and tell them how to move their bodies at the same time, you can do anything. It's really hard. So that's been really kind of transformative for me as well.
Yeah. Your podcast seems really interesting, like workplace confessions. I'll definitely go through it. Yeah. So now we all know that AI AI is disrupting every industry. So what's your take on AI versus coaching? Like coaching currently is like coaching is growing rapidly. Like from the last 3, 4 years, it has grown more than 40% that I had the data. But I've seen that AI has also came to the game. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, this is a question that I both think about and get asked about a lot. So I appreciate having the opportunity to speak about it. I think my initial take was that no AI could ever replace a coaching relationship,
Yeah.
because so much of what you're doing in coaching is symbiotic. It's an exchange of energy, and it's showing up and holding space for someone and seeing the very best of them. I mean, I've heard it said, and I say it myself, that coaches are dynamic mirrors. They're only reflecting back to you the
Yeah.
best that's already in you. They're not trying to tell you something new. They're not consultants, right? Um, but now I feel a little differently. I'm starting to see, as other coaches that I know are working with AI and integrating it into their coaching strategy, that there's a real great role for AI. One of my coaching partners is working through a program where the participants have an AI experience or relationship building up to a live coaching engagement. So they spend a bunch of time in AI determining what their goals are and what they've tried so far and what worked and what didn't and why, and doing all of that sort of background work that coaches do. And then they have 3 live sessions with a coach. And I think that they're harnessing the best of both worlds and in an efficient timeline, which is so important these days because no one has the attention span for prolonged engagements of any kind. And I really see potential in it. I think it can be really helpful. The other thing I think is helpful from a pure coaching learning perspective is using an AI note-taking tool to transcribe your sessions. And so I do that with every coaching session. And then I analyze the data. I ask my artificial intelligence program to tell me what percentage of time I was speaking versus my client, to pretend that the AI bot is a master coach, in ICF and MCC, and to evaluate my coaching style based on the core competencies of the ICF rules. And it gives me a really nice guide map of where I need to focus, what I'm doing well already and what I'm not. And sometimes it points out things that are going well that I didn't pick up on, that are nuanced, and in the moment I'm not seeing it, or things that I could do better that I also didn't pick up on. So it's honestly been a really transformative tool. And when you're creating presentations and workshops, it's phenomenal because I can just I can say, okay, this is the topic. Here are the ways I want to break it down. And on this lecture, I think these are the salient points. And it will just flush the whole thing out. And it just saves a lot of time and lets me focus on the place where I think I can add the most value, which is in the interpersonal exchange.
Yeah. You explained it really well, the role of AI in coaching. And I think it will be helpful for all the people watching this. Even the major part of my audience is also like coaches and consultants who are, growing in this field. So I'm sure that it will be helpful for them too. So now let's talk about your coaching as a business. So this question I love to, out of curiosity, ask every coach that comes to my podcast, like, what's your traffic source split? Like, for example, you get 30% organic, 40% through social media, then through referral. What's that estimate split look for you?
Okay, so you're asking what is the split between, well, actually, would just tell me the question again, if you would. I
Yeah,
think I'm not understanding.
yeah. Like you have different, like we all have different types of ways through which we can get clients and traffic. Like I'm
Yeah.
asking, like, what's the average percentage? Like 30% major chunk is getting from organic, then from social media. What's that percentage?
Okay, now I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I haven't yet analyzed it to, down to the fine details, but I think a lot of the clients that I have are either people that are in my network or my networks. So I use the strategies that I teach other people when I'm teaching my altruistic networking strategy. I use that, I live that. And through that, I've been able to have all the coaching clients that I've wanted. I'm happy with the amount of work that I have. Um, because I also do a lot of volunteer work and it leaves me time to do that. So that's been great. It's been a nice balance. I haven't so far, I think I have had a couple of clients reach out to me who've found me on LinkedIn, but I don't think it's a very large percentage of my business. That said, I love posting on LinkedIn. I'm kind of obsessed with it. And so I post every day of the week after week. It's just a rule I set for myself. It's something that one of my coaching friends, Eric Rainers, told me I should do when I first started. And he's totally right. And it helps me develop my point of view, especially for coaching or for public speaking engagements, because I have to articulate that point of view day after day, week after week. And you really learn to put a finer point on things. And so I'm hopeful that over time, that will be a great source of work as well, especially for my peer coaching circles. But right now, I haven't analyzed how much of it's coming from them. It all feels pretty organic, except for 1 or 2 clients that came through LinkedIn.
And that's completely okay that you haven't analyzed. So, like, are you on Facebook and Instagram? And what's
Yeah.
that social media role in coaching?
Yeah. So I think that historically, most trained and certified coaches have focused on LinkedIn and other marketing strategies and not Instagram and Facebook. My brother is an author, and I noticed that he recently started posting every day on Instagram as well. And so I'm seeing more coaches do that. And I do have an Instagram page for my coaching business, but I don't leverage it. I really focus on my LinkedIn posting. What I do use Facebook and Instagram for is advertising the podcast, because people seem to be looking at those spaces for
Yeah,
recommendations like that. So, and it seems to be going well. It's only existed since January, so it's a little hard to tell. But we are getting people reaching out asking to be on the podcast who are not from my network or my podcast host co-host networks either. So I think it's getting traction that way. We'll see.
that's great. Yeah, completely. So we are at the end of the podcast, but before it, I would, you know, love to ask you more about what are your key learnings over the period for in the coaching business so that it will be helpful for our audience.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a little hard to ex- it's not hard to explain. It's a little hard to integrate what I'm about to say for a lot of people. And I get that. I really do. What I see happening in coaching more often than I would like is what I would call gatekeeping. I'm part of a number of coaching circles that where I see a lot of people hoarding information and access to potential clients, not referring work to other coaches, and I understand it, but I don't agree with it. That is not the way that it's not the best way to generate business, in my opinion. So my coaching partner Michelle Hafford and I started this informal group called Coach Support, and it's a once a month phone call, and any coach can call in. There's no cost. It's just very casual, and that group is built on a model of um, really altruistic sharing of information and very transparent sharing. We don't really welcome people who engage in gatekeeping. So in that circle, you'll find coaches who will say exactly what they charge and why, how they get business, what's worked for them, what hasn't. They'll share openly the knowledge that they've spent sometimes years accumulating. And I find that those are my people. People who believe that there's enough work out there for everyone, and that if you just put the best version of you out in the world, you'll always have enough work. And I have found that to be true. It doesn't mean I don't have dark days. There's certainly times where I've thought maybe I chose poorly. Maybe I should have stayed a lawyer. But those times are few and far between. Most of the time, I feel like I made the right decision, and that this is the best way forward.
Yeah, that's completely great. And I really love your vision behind that call thing that you mentioned, that you have weekly calls with coaches and they share all their insights that would be helpful for other coaches. And honestly, that was one of the reason why I started this podcast, because I'm only inviting ideal guests who are either coach or consultant, so that they can share somewhat like you shared your traffic thing and a lot of things that will be insightful for coaches as well. And I really liked your story. So, Don, where can people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Dawn Andrews. My company is called Access Leadership Coaching. There is another Dawn Andrews on LinkedIn who is also a coach. So you have to kind of look carefully to make sure it's me that you're finding. And then I am on Instagram. I'm under Access Leadership Coaching there. And my podcast is called Workplace Confessions Behind Closed Doors. And we have an Instagram and a Facebook page for that. And then I have a website. It's accessleadershipcoaching.com, and the podcast has a website, which is workplace-confessions.com. I always forget what that little hash is called, but
Yeah.
so yeah, so those are the places.
Honestly, even I got confused when I was researching about your LinkedIn. There are two
Yeah.
same with same name. So what I'll do is just send me all the links. I'll put on the links in the description so that it will be easy for the audience to reach out to you and even connect with you. So yeah, it was
Okay.
lovely talking to you, Don.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot again for coming to the podcast. And Hope to see you again.